Welcome to the deep dive. Today, you and I are going straight into a fascinating area. How the simple act of asking questions can be a superpower, especially when it comes to sales. We're going to unpack the core ideas from Thomas Freese's book, Secrets of Question-Based Selling. Forget the pushy tactics. This is about the strategic advantage you gain by asking the right questions.
Exactly. And this isn't just about closing deals, Think about any situation where you need to truly understand someone, a client, a colleague, even figuring out a tricky problem on your own. The ability to ask effective questions is, well, the key to unlocking understanding and influence. This deep dive is designed to give you practical tools to sharpen that skill, like right away.
And our guide is Thomas Freese, a guy who didn't just theorize about this, he lived it. For 7 years, he consistently doubled his sales quota. That real-world success led him to develop the question-based selling methodology, and he even founded QBS Research, Inc., becoming a leading voice on this topic with multiple books under his belt. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, definitely. So our mission today is clear. We're extracting the essential principles and actionable techniques of QBS. We want you to walk away with a solid understanding of how strategic questioning can drive better outcomes, whether you're in sales or, frankly, any area where understanding needs and influencing decisions is crucial.
Okay, let's unpack this. Question-based selling. It sounds obvious, right? You ask questions. But what's the core insight here? What makes it so powerful?
Well, the fundamental insight is this. Asking the right questions is just as vital as knowing what to say. It's about being deliberate and strategic with your inquiries. QBS gives you a framework to use questions to spot opportunities you might otherwise miss, really dig down and understand what someone needs, and even uncover potential objections before they derail the conversation.
So instead of just presenting information and hoping something sticks, you're using questions to actively guide the conversation and uncover what truly matters.
Precisely. The book lays out a step-by-step approach for asking the right questions at the right moment. Freese argues that mastering this technique can lead to some pretty significant wins. Getting into more potential accounts, establishing yourself as someone who really gets it, securing those crucial follow-up meetings, and ultimately closing sales faster and more effectively.
Now, one statistic from the book really stood out to me. The average success rate for connecting with new prospects is just, 2 to 5%. That's a tough hill to climb.
It really underscores the challenge. Think about how much effort goes into reaching out. And the vast majority of those initial attempts don't even lead to a real opportunity. That can be incredibly frustrating, right? This is where QBS offers a different strategy, a way to break through the noise and achieve better than average results by, approaching things differently.
So it's not about finding some magic phrase or a perfect script. It's more about shifting your mindset to focus on increasing your probability of success while actively working to reduce the chances of failure. Is that it?
Exactly. Freese emphasizes that every interaction is unique. There's no one-size-fits-all answer. Instead, QBS is about understanding the cause and effect in sales and communication. It's about identifying the actions that consistently move you toward a positive outcome and consciously avoiding those that tend to lead to, dead ends.
And one of the key ways to tilt those odds in your favor is by minimizing risk. That makes sense in any situation. The fewer things that can go wrong, the better your chances of a good result.
What's fascinating here is the inverse relationship Freese highlights between your probability of success and the risk involved. As you actively work to minimize the potential pitfalls in a sales interaction, you naturally boost your chances of a successful outcome. They kind of move in opposite directions.
He also mentions that the average sale takes around 5 closing attempts. That surprised me. It feels like so many potential deals must just evaporate because people give up too soon.
That's a critical point. People often need time to become comfortable with a significant decision like a purchase. The emotional commitment often builds over multiple conversations. Salespeople who are hesitant to follow up or don't have a structured process are likely missing out on a lot of potential business simply by not reaching that point where the prospect is finally ready to say yes.
Now, let's talk about something Freese calls mismatching. That sounds like a major red flag in any conversation.
Oh, it is. Freese defines mismatching as a fundamental form of disagreement, often driven by a natural, almost automatic emotional response. It's that tendency people have to react by taking the opposite viewpoint, to contradict or correct what's being said, or even try to win up the other person. So the crucial takeaway for you is disagreement kills deals, and our natural instinct to just state our opinion often triggers it.
And for someone trying to make a sale, constantly creating friction like that is counterproductive, right? You're trying to build rapport, not start arguments.
Precisely. If a salesperson engages in mismatching behavior with a prospect or customer, they are actively sabotaging their own efforts. It creates tension and erodes the trust you're trying to build. Freese even suggests that if you recognize this tendency in yourself, it's something to actively work on correcting.
But it's interesting that he also points out that prospects often mismatch salespeople almost automatically. It's not necessarily personal.
That's a really valuable perspective shift, actually. Buyers are often naturally cautious. They might feel like they need to challenge what they're being told or push back a little. So, as a salesperson, you shouldn't take this resistance personally. It's more about understanding this inherent dynamic and having strategies in place to navigate it effectively.
And that brings us to the core idea that telling is not selling. It seems pretty obvious, but I bet it's a trap many people fall into, not just in sales.
Absolutely. In today's world, buyers are more informed than ever, and frankly, less receptive to being lectured or pressured. Nobody wants to feel like they're being forced into a decision. The QBS approach emphasizes first uncovering the prospect's specific needs through careful questioning, and then educating them on how your product or service can directly address those needs and provide value. It's about guiding them to see the opportunity for improvement themselves.
Okay, so how does QBS help us reduce this risk of mismatching? Freese outlines 5 key strategies. Right? Let's dig into those. The first one is pretty direct. Ask more questions and make fewer statements.
It sounds simple, but it's incredibly effective. Statements, by their very nature, take a definitive stance, which immediately opens them up for disagreement. Someone can always think or say, well, I don't agree with that. Questions, on the other hand, are much harder to contradict. They tend to diffuse those emotional triggers that can lead to mismatching. As Freese wisely puts it, it's practically impossible to disagree with a question.
That makes perfect sense. A question invites curiosity and thought, rather than a potential clash of opinions. The second strategy is, credibility reduces the prospect's need to resist. How can we effectively establish that credibility early on in a conversation?
Yeah, building credibility right from the start is crucial for creating a comfortable and productive interaction. When a salesperson is perceived as knowledgeable, trustworthy, and competent, the prospect's natural inclination to push back is significantly diminished. They feel more confident in what you're saying and more open to listening. This early establishment of credibility lays a strong foundation for a more collaborative dialogue.
Strategy number 3 is intriguing. Curiosity neutralizes the mismatching reflex. How does sparking a prospect's curiosity help to diffuse that potential resistance?
When you successfully pique someone's curiosity, their focus shifts from being potentially defensive to wanting to learn more. They become actively engaged and interested in what you have to offer. And here's the key insight. When a customer asks you a question driven by their own curiosity, they are essentially seeking your help. It becomes very difficult for them to simultaneously be asking for your expertise and trying to resist or push you away. Curiosity creates a natural pull towards you rather than a push away.
That's a clever way to think about it, turning potential resistance into active engagement. The fourth strategy is reversing the positive. This one sounds a bit counterintuitive at first glance.
It does, yeah, but it's a surprisingly effective technique for diffusing potential resistance. Reversing the positive involves using negatively phrased questions that are designed to actually encourage the prospect to disagree in your favor. Think about those examples Freese gives. Did I catch you at a bad time? If they say no, they're implicitly agreeing to give you their time. Am I interrupting anything important? Again, a no opens the door. Is next week too soon for us to discuss this further? A no can indicate they're potentially ready to move forward sooner. And will the pricing in this proposal make your boss uncomfortable? A no can subtly address a potential price objection.
So by phrasing it in a negative way, you're almost setting them up to give you a positive affirmation. It's a subtle but powerful way to guide the conversation. And the fifth strategy is momentum helps reduce the mismatching instinct, which ties into the herd theory.
Exactly. The herd theory taps into the powerful psychological principle that people are significantly influenced by what others are doing. If a prospect perceives that many other similarly individuals or companies are already interested in or benefiting from your product or service, they're naturally less likely to resist or push back against it. It creates a sense of social proof and reduces their perceived risk of taking a similar step.
So how does this herd theory practically play out in a sales conversation? The book summary gives a really clear example with a KnowledgeWare seminar invitation.
Yes. Freese contrasts a typical, rather bland sales pitch with a QBS-driven approach that strategically uses the herd theory. The standard approach is just a generic introduction of the company, and its offerings the kind of message prospects hear constantly, right?
Yeah, tunes it out.
Exactly. The QBS strategy, however, focuses on generating anticipation and excitement around an upcoming seminar. The crucial element is communicating that there's expected to be a record turnout, and then specifically naming impressive, well-known companies that are already registered to attend U.S. Sprint, Hallmark Cards, PepsiCom, and so on.
Right. It's not just vaguely saying lots of companies use our product. It's listing recognizable, respected brands. That definitely carries a lot more weight and generates curiosity, I'd imagine.
Precisely. By highlighting that prominent players in their industry are showing interest and will be there, it taps into the prospect's natural curiosity and potential fear of missing out on something important that their competitors are engaged with. It also provides a form of emotional reassurance. If these reputable companies are finding value, there's likely something worthwhile there.
And this herd theory isn't just useful for initial outreach. It can also be a powerful tool for overcoming objections later in the sales process, right?
Right.
The example with Nations Bank and the price concern illustrates that pretty well.
Exactly. Instead of directly arguing about the price, the salesperson uses a herd reference to demonstrate that other similar customers, like Nations Bank, had initial concerns about the price, but ultimately found that the tangible value they received significantly outweighed the investment. By framing it this way, the salesperson positions themselves as more of a messenger, simply relaying the positive experiences of others, which is often much more persuasive than a direct defense of the price point.
Okay. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about understanding what truly motivates our customers. The book introduces this gold medals and German shepherds analogy. That's a really memorable image.
It is. This framework helps us understand the two primary driving forces behind most people's decisions. The gold medals represent the desire for positive gains, the potential benefits and rewards that a product or service can offer. The German shepherds symbolize the need to avoid pain, problems, and uncertainty, the negative consequences that people are actively trying to steer clear of. The core insight for you is to always consider both the potential gains and the potential pains your solution addresses. That's where the real persuasive power lies.
So some people are primarily motivated by the potential for reward, while others are more driven by the fear of negative consequences. Or is it more mixed?
That's a good way to simplify it. But Freese points out that very few people are motivated purely by one or the other. In reality, most prospects are driven by a combination of both. The real power comes in recognizing this blend and positioning the benefits of your product or service in a way that directly appeals to both of these fundamental human motivations.
So by addressing both their aspirations and their potential fears, you're essentially doubling the perceived value and giving them twice as many reasons to move forward.
Absolutely. And the examples really drive this home. Think about Volvo. They're positioned as both efficient and stylish, the gold medal, and incredibly safe for protecting your family, the German Shepherd.
Right.
Or Tandem Computers offering maximum performance, gold medal, while simultaneously eliminating system downtime, German Shepherd. By consciously addressing both types of motivation, you significantly increase the perceived value and relevance of your offering.
This understanding of motivation naturally leads us to the importance of focusing on what the customer actually wants and understanding their underlying needs, both the ones they readily acknowledge and those that might be, hidden beneath the surface.
Exactly. Identifying customer needs is absolutely fundamental. It doesn't matter how innovative or amazing your product is if your potential customers don't recognize that they have a genuine need for it. Freese makes a key distinction between active needs, where the customer is already aware of their dissatisfaction and actively seeking a solution, and latent needs, where they haven't yet recognized they have a problem or an opportunity for improvement.
And I imagine it's a much easier sell to someone who has an active need. They're already looking for what you might have to offer.
Oh yes, far more receptive. Your task is simply to demonstrate how your offering directly meets their recognized need. However, the often larger and untapped market lies with those who have latent needs. The reason these needs remain latent is often simply a lack of awareness. They don't know they have a problem, so they don't see any compelling reason to change their current situation.
So the top-performing salespeople are the ones who can effectively bring those latent needs to the forefront and create a sense of urgency around addressing them.
Precisely. They skillfully transform those unrecognized needs into active needs. And the stronger the prospect's sense of urgency, the more likely they are to take decisive action on your proposed solutions. A key way to achieve this is by shifting their perspective, either by providing new information that illuminates a potential problem, or by asking targeted questions that help them uncover areas for improvement they hadn't previously considered.
Now, the book introduces this concept of conversational layering. That sounds like a structured and intentional way to build a successful sales interaction.
It is. Think of conversational layering as your roadmap for a successful interaction. It's a model that outlines the essential steps that need to occur in a specific order to move towards a successful sale. It highlights that while building relationships is important in the long run, it's not the initial catalyst. The spark that ignites the whole process is actually curiosity. Understanding each layer ensures you're building a solid foundation rather than, jumping ahead and losing the other person.
So you can't just rely on being likable. You first need to grab their attention and make them genuinely want to learn more about what you have to offer.
Exactly. And this leads directly to what Freese calls the QBS sales forum, which is essentially the valuable combination of the prospect's limited time and their undivided attention. This is where the real sales process truly begins. Top salespeople consistently excel at getting their foot in the door with new accounts because they understand how to pique the prospect's curiosity and secure this precious forum. So practically speaking, how can you actively work to gain someone's time and attention? What are some concrete actions you can take?
That's the key question, isn't it? The summary lists 5 QBS strategies for making prospects curious. Let's walk through those. First up, provocative questions and statements.
These are specifically designed to jolt the prospect out of their routine thinking and make them stop and consider something new. In a sales context, a well-crafted, provocative question or statement can create an immediate opportunity for you to introduce your product or service as a potential solution to the issue you just raised.
The second strategy is partial information. The classic, leave them wanting more approach.
Exactly. Instead of overwhelming prospects with every single detail up front, you strategically share just enough intriguing information to spark their interest and make them actively want to delve deeper. It's about creating an information gap that they become motivated to fill by asking you more questions.
Number 3 is glimpses of value, which sounds like a powerful combination of the first 2 strategies.
That's precisely it. This is a particularly effective technique that blends the use of provocative questions with the deliberate sharing of partial information. You're essentially offering tantalizing hints of the valuable benefits they could potentially receive, enticing them to ask for more specifics so they can fully grasp the potential impact.
Strategy 4 is newness and exclusivity, tapping into that natural human desire to be in the know and have access to things others don't.
Precisely. People are naturally drawn to what's new, innovative, and exclusive. By highlighting the newness or exclusivity of your offering, you can significantly pique their interest. Even offering to share more confidential details under a non-disclosure agreement can further enhance this sense of exclusivity and make them feel like they're gaining privileged information.
And the 5th strategy directly connects back to our earlier discussion on social proof, leveraging momentum.
Yes, strategically using momentum as a powerful curiosity inducer. When a prospect early in a call asks the inevitable question, "So, what's this about?" Instead of launching into a generic self-focused pitch, you can leverage the fact that you're addressing specific, pressing problems commonly faced by many companies within their particular industry. This immediately frames your call as highly relevant and potentially valuable, making them much more curious to hear the specific details of how you can help.
Okay, once you've successfully captured their attention through curiosity, the crucial next step is establishing your credibility. How does QBS suggest we do that effectively, especially in those critical initial interactions?
Freese emphasizes the importance of starting by intentionally narrowing the scope of your initial questions. By asking specific diagnostic questions early in the conversation, you can effectively demonstrate your knowledge and understanding of their particular situation without resorting to making broad, generic statements about your company or its products. Intelligent and relevant questions immediately lead to a perception of higher competence and value in the prospect's mind.
The summary provides a great example of this with a brief exchange about file servers, network topology, and operating systems. It's very focused and, well, to the point.
Exactly. In that concise exchange, the salesperson skillfully gathers crucial technical information while simultaneously and subtly showcasing their own technical understanding. This targeted questioning builds credibility much faster and more effectively than a lengthy monologue about their company's history or a laundry list of product features. Once that initial level of credibility is established, you then earn the right to gradually broaden the scope of your questions to uncover their deeper, more strategic needs and build a stronger, more meaningful relationship.
Now, it's not just about asking any questions. It's about strategically escalating the value of the questions you ask as the conversation progresses. What does that look like in practical terms?
It's a deliberate and thoughtful progression. You begin with easier, less intrusive questions to build initial rapport and earn the right to ask more probing questions later on. Freese makes a useful distinction between status questions, which are designed to gather basic factual information and typically have relatively low mutual value, and issue questions, which delve into potential problems, challenges, and areas where your solution might be relevant. Good examples of issue questions would be things like, what's the most significant business issue you're currently facing? Or to what extent is a specific challenge related to your industry impacting your bottom line?
And then there's the to what extent question, which acts as a really smooth bridge between those two types of questions, doesn't it?
Exactly. It's a highly effective way to seamlessly transition from gathering basic status information to exploring deeper, more significant issues. It encourages the prospect to elaborate on their initial responses and really think more critically about the importance and impact of a particular issue within their organization.
Building on that, we move to implication questions. These sound like they're specifically designed to highlight the potential negative consequences of not addressing the issues that have been identified.
That's precisely their strategic purpose. Implication questions are designed to get prospects to think seriously about the potential ramifications of their unresolved issues. By probing further into their thoughts and feelings about these consequences, you help them understand the potential negative impacts that might occur if they don't take action to address the problem. Questions like, what would happen to your team's productivity if your computer system experienced extended downtime? Or, have you calculated the potential financial cost of unscheduled data loss? Help them quantify the potential negative impacts and thereby justify the need for a timely and effective solution.
And then we have solution questions, which mark a shift towards focusing on the positive outcomes and benefits of implementing a solution.
Yes, these questions strategically shift the focus of the conversation towards the positive outcomes and tangible benefits that can be achieved by implementing the right solution. They are designed to motivate the prospect to move forward by painting a clear picture of how their identified problems can be effectively solved. A classic example of a solution question would be something like, Mr. Jenkins, if I could demonstrate a way to effectively solve each of the critical issues we've just discussed, would you be willing to explore taking the next step in the process? These types of questions are excellent for securing commitment to the subsequent stages of the sales process.
Finally, there's the important concept of neutralizing the disposition of your questions. That sounds like it's all about getting more honest and unbiased feedback.
Exactly. By carefully framing your questions in a neutral and non-leading way, you make it much easier for the prospect to give you an honest and accurate answer, even if it's not entirely positive. Instead of asking a closed-ended question that might pressure them, like, so, are we still on track to finalize the deal by the end of this month? You could neutrally ask, regarding our timeline for completing this deal by the end of the month, what are your current thoughts or any potential factors that might influence that? The latter phrasing invites them to share any potential concerns or roadblocks they might have, providing you with a much more realistic and accurate picture of the situation.
So all these different types of questions play a very specific and strategic role in moving the conversation forward, uncovering critical needs, and ultimately building towards a successful outcome. Now, the book breaks down the overall QBS sales process into 3 distinct phases. What are those key phases?
The 3 fundamental phases of the QBS sales process are Phase 1, interest generation, Phase 2, the presentation, and Phase 3, closing steps. Think of it as a sequential journey. In Phase 1, interest generation, the primary goal is to pique sufficient interest in potential buyers through various initial activities, such as introductory calls or targeted marketing efforts, to motivate them to actively move into the next phase of the process. This initial phase is where effectively using curiosity-driving techniques, establishing early credibility, and uncovering initial needs are absolutely critical.
Okay, Phase 2 is the presentation. This is the crucial stage where you actually have the opportunity to showcase your proposed solution and its value, right?
Correct. The presentation phase is the vital pivot point in the entire process. It provides your dedicated opportunity to thoroughly educate prospects on the specific value of your solutions and directly addressing the needs that you've diligently uncovered through your questioning. A compelling and well-delivered presentation makes them genuinely want to continue progressing towards ultimately closing the deal.
And then phase 3 is the closing steps, which is where you work to finalize the agreement and secure their commitment.
Exactly. This final phase is where you collaboratively work with the buyer to agree on the specific terms and conditions of the agreement and ultimately secure their firm commitment to choose your particular product or service. It's absolutely crucial to remember that the ultimate success of this closing phase is heavily dependent on how effectively you successfully generated initial interest and persuasively presented your solutions in the preceding two phases.
It sounds like throughout this entire process, the salesperson needs to adopt a proactive stance and really take ownership of guiding the interaction. They're definitely not just passively waiting for orders to come in.
Oh, absolutely. Freese strongly emphasizes that as a salesperson utilizing the QBS methodology, you are the expert in the relationship. You possess the valuable knowledge and practical experience to skillfully identify potential problems and articulate a compelling vision for precisely how your offering can effectively solve those challenges. You need to confidently guide the prospect through this carefully structured process.
Now let's touch upon a particularly challenging area for many, cold calling. Nobody really enjoys making them, and probably even fewer people enjoy receiving them. How does the QBS approach aim to transform those often dreaded cold calls into something a bit more welcome lukewarm calls, as the summary aptly puts it?
Yeah, the fundamental key is to immediately shift the focus of the call away from being an unwelcome interruption and towards offering potential value right from the very beginning. Freese outlines a practical four-stage process for conducting a more effective lukewarm sales call. Stage 1 is the initial introduction, which comprises 3 critical substeps. Clearly and concisely identify yourself and the company you represent. Establish a relevant association to create an immediate sense of familiarity, perhaps mentioning a mutual referral or a common connection. And crucially, offer a compelling glimpse of potential value by briefly highlighting an enticing benefit to quickly gauge their interest in hearing more. The example provided is a highly effective opening. Would you be interested in learning how you could significantly reduce your current cost of goods sold with just one relatively simple change in your overall strategy?
That is a significantly more intriguing opening than simply launching straight into a generic product pitch. What does stage 2 of the lukewarm call process involve?
Stage 2 is the discovery phase. The primary goal here is to gather essential initial information. But equally important, it's about strategically earning the right to ask more probing and insightful questions in the subsequent stages of the conversation. A key question to ask early in this stage is simply and directly inquiring if they are indeed the most appropriate person within their organization to discuss the specific topic you've briefly introduced. If they confirm that they are, you've automatically earned the valuable permission to delve deeper into their specific needs and challenges in the subsequent stages of the call.
Got it. Stage 3 is the value proposition. This is where you begin to explain in more detail exactly how you can potentially help them.
Exactly. Having successfully established some initial level of interest and positively confirmed that you are speaking with the right individual within the organization, this crucial stage provides your dedicated opportunity to educate them further and really begin to build tangible value in your product or service offering. Throughout this stage, it's absolutely critical to maintain a strong focus on the specific needs and potential challenges that you've begun to uncover through your initial questioning.
And the final stage, stage 4, is close on next steps. It's understood that you're likely not going to close a major deal on a first cold call, so this is about strategically setting up the next logical interaction.
Precisely. This final stage is all about effectively managing expectations and proactively expanding the conversation to potentially include other key decision makers within their organization. It's also a strategic time to begin identifying potential internal champions within their company who can help you navigate the broader organizational landscape and advocate for your solution as you progress through the sales process.
Summary also offers some valuable practical advice on effectively getting in touch with the right person within an organization. It's not always the CEO, is it?
That's a very important point. While high-level executive contacts certainly possess the ultimate authority to make significant purchasing decisions, truly valuable opportunities can often originate with individuals at lower or middle management levels who are directly experiencing the specific problems that your product or service is designed to solve. It's crucial to remember that while not every individual you speak with will have the power to formally approve a purchase, many people throughout an organization possess the ability to effectively stop a sale from happening. Therefore, cultivating relationships at various levels within a target company can be highly beneficial in the long run.
Moving on to the presentation itself, the primary goal is to build a compelling level of value that clearly justifies a purchase decision in the prospect's mind. It's definitely not just about reciting a list of features and specifications.
Absolutely not. A strong and effective QBS-driven presentation focuses intently on ensuring that the audience clearly recognizes their specific needs and is actively engaged in listening to the proposed solutions you are presenting. And the way you conclude your presentation is just as critically important as the content itself. The ending is your prime opportunity to concisely summarize precisely how your offering directly addresses their identified needs and to strategically position the conversation for a successful and mutually beneficial final close.
And what are the 5 essential prerequisites that Freese outlines as needing to be in place before you can realistically expect to successfully close a sale? Could you recap those?
Sure. First and foremost, there needs to be a clearly recognized need on the part of the prospect. They must acknowledge that they have a problem that requires a solution or a significant opportunity that they wish to pursue. Secondly, you need to have effectively presented a viable solution that directly and adequately addresses that specific need. Third, the prospect's perceived value of your proposed solution must demonstrably outweigh its associated cost in their own evaluation. Fourth, there needs to be a compelling sense of agency that motivates them to take action now rather than delaying the decision. And finally, the individual or individuals you are engaging with must possess the actual authority to make the final purchasing decision. If even one of these crucial prerequisites is missing, successfully closing the sale will invariably be a significant uphill battle.
So ultimately, achieving genuine sales excellence and significantly boosting your results isn't about discovering some secret magic trick or shortcut. It fundamentally comes down to consistently putting in the dedicated hard work and diligently applying the core principles of the QBS methodology to proactively create a greater number of qualified opportunities at the very top of your sales funnel.
Exactly. By consistently and effectively penetrating new accounts, skillfully uncovering critical needs through strategic and insightful questioning, persuasively presenting compelling value that directly addresses those needs, and clearly differentiating yourself from your competition, you will inevitably create a greater number of genuine opportunities to successfully close more deals. And, as Freese powerfully emphasizes, a deep commitment to excellence in your approach and a consistent willingness to put in the necessary effort are absolutely essential for achieving those truly significant and sustainable improvements in your sales performance.
So to really bring it all together, the central power of question-based selling truly lies in that fundamental and strategic shift from simply telling people about your product or service to skillfully asking the right questions to genuinely understand their unique needs and then effectively guiding them towards a solution that perfectly fits those specific requirements. And as we've thoroughly discussed today, this invaluable ability to ask effective questions extends far beyond just the realm of sales. It's a highly transferable skill that can significantly benefit pretty much any area of your life where clear communication and mutual understanding are paramount.
Absolutely. And on that thought, here's a practical challenge for you, our listener. Take a moment to think about your very next interaction, whether it's a formal professional meeting, a delicate negotiation, or even just a casual conversation where you're aiming to understand a new concept or perspective. How could you immediately apply just one or perhaps two of the specific QBS techniques that we've explored in detail today? Maybe consciously try reversing the positive in a challenging situation, or actively focus on asking more insightful issue questions to really uncover the underlying challenges. Experiment a little and see what valuable insights you gain and how it influences the outcome.
It's truly fascinating to consider how these core principles of cultivating genuine curiosity, practicing active listening, and deeply understanding someone's fundamental needs, which are so central to the question-based selling methodology, are so broadly and universally applicable across so many different aspects of our lives. Perhaps we can delve into some of these fascinating connections in future deep dives.
Definitely. It ultimately raises a very important question for you to consider. What assumptions might you currently be making instead of actively seeking crucial information through thoughtful and targeted questions? And what potentially valuable insights or significant opportunities could you inadvertently be missing as a direct result? It's definitely something profound worth pondering long after our deep dive concludes.